But I want to say welcome and thank you so much for being here. My name is Wybonda Summers. I am the Associate Dean of Student Affairs, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion here at the Creighton School of Law. Thank you. First, I want to say thank you to our esteemed guests that are here. We have Judge Elliott, District Court, Judge Martinez, who also serves in the District Court, Judge Stevens, who is from our Juvenile Separate Court here in Douglas County. Am I missing any other judges? So first, I want to say thank you all for being here. I also want to recognize my counterpart from Lincoln, the Interim Associate Dean of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, and then also Dave Summers, the President of the Omaha Bar Association. Thank you both for being here as well. And also thank you to the Black Law Student Association in conjunction with Midlands for putting this on. Thank you to the Lincoln students for coming down here. So before we get to the heavy-hitting questions with this dynamic panel that I get to speak to this afternoon or this evening, I'm going to have each of them introduce themselves because I feel like I would never do them justice. Judge Martinez, did you want to get started? Introduce yourself and maybe a little bit of background.
Sure. Thank you, everybody, for inviting me. I'm sorry I'm not there in person to see you all, but I really appreciate the opportunity to at least appear by Zoom. I'm Stephanie Martinez. I'm currently a district court judge in Sarpy County. I became a judge back in 2013. I was first appointed to the county court and then to the district court in 2017. So just over 9 years I've been sitting as a current judge in Nebraska. Prior to that, I had experience working as a public defender in the Douglas County Public Defender's Office. Then I went into private practice and worked in juvenile court, county and district court, and the federal court in Iowa and Nebraska. And then I went to the Sarpy County Attorney's Office and was a prosecutor there for about 5 years before I took the bench. So a very blessed career, and I'm grateful for all the opportunities I've had.
I also have to plug that our students get to learn from her, and she's an adjunct professor here at Creighton. Sorry.
Yes. Yeah. Another thing I thoroughly enjoy doing.
Judge Elliott.
Good evening. I am Tressa Elliott. I am a judge on one of 18 judges on the District Court of Douglas County. I was appointed the first African-American female in the state of Nebraska, appointed to the District Court bench in April of 2021. Prior to that, I was in the Douglas County Attorney's Office for 23 years, worked in all 3 divisions, started in the juvenile division, went to domestic violence, then did preliminary hearings and then felonies, and then became one of the team leaders supervised 6 other attorneys and handled a variety of different cases. I obviously am an alum of Creighton in '97, and I did Creighton's 3-3 program. So I graduated from undergrad in '95 and then law school in '97 and went straight to the county attorney's office. And now I'm learning all kinds of different law as a district court judge.
Professor Mallory.
Good evening. I'm Chantel Mallory. I currently serve as the executive director of a nonprofit organization called the Nebraska Legal Diversity Council. We were established to move the needle a little bit more on diversity, equity, and inclusion in our profession within the state of Nebraska. I love my job. I'm also an adjunct professor here at Creighton University. I was a Creighton grad and then alum of Creighton Law School, class of 2000. So I was just far enough behind Judge Elliott to get all of her good wisdom because we were in undergrad together, and so I could ask her questions. So she's incredibly great, and I look forward to what she and the rest of the panelists are going to say this evening. So thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I'm thankful to be a member of the Midlands Bar Association and a past president of both that and BALSA. So I'm proud of both organizations and just happy to be in the room tonight.
Thank you, Ms. Miller.
Is this thing on? Okay, sorry. My name is Deanna Pena. I am an attorney. I work at Nebraska Legal Group, which is a family law firm. I do some immigration also. I went to UNL for law school, and all my Lincoln kids, hello, you're my favorite. Sorry, Cessna.
But she comes and speaks for us at least twice a year.
We don't talk about that. No. I call myself the divorce force, which half the time people think is really inappropriate, but sometimes people laugh, which is great. I'm one of like 5 bilingual attorneys that are in this state, so I do a lot of everything. If you speak Spanish, I will do whatever you need, and I will figure it out. But yeah, I went to Lincoln. I love Creighton. I love laws, and I'm super happy to be here. And I'm running out of things to say. So I'll let Sapphire go ahead.
Thank you. Sapphire?
Good evening, my name is Sapphire Anderson. I am a Creighton Law graduate of spring 2021. I currently practice labor and employment law, the counsel and compliance end of things at Baird Home, kind of a mid-sized law firm here in town with 100 or so attorneys, and I am honored to be here today.
Well, thank you so much, ladies, and I'm looking forward to talking about women and everything law this evening. So, first question, please, if you have any questions, please raise your hand. My job is to ask questions just in case people are shy, but I would love for it to be a conversation if possible. The questions that I'm going to ask were provided by the students beforehand, so these are not my questions. Now, granted, I am an attorney and I was a defense attorney, so there's a very good chance that I will have questions that I may pop in on my own. Because very rarely do you get to have such a variety of people to speak to. So, first question is, have you ever felt imposter syndrome? And what has historically been a male-dominated field, and how do you navigate through that?
I saw a TikTok recently, and when I say I saw a TikTok, I mean I watched it on Instagram because I'm 30. That said, you are not experiencing imposter syndrome, you are literally an imposter. But it was in a good way. It was a black individual saying it, but he was saying that the system is not built for you. So someone telling you feel imposter syndrome is gaslighting you into thinking that you're feeling something that you shouldn't be feeling, that it is all in your head, right? Even just the phrase imposter syndrome. The point of his little video was that we are imposters. Like, that's the whole point. That's why you feel this way. So, like, feel your feelings, eat your cheesecake, drink your wine in moderation, and, move forward from there. But I thought it resonated with me a lot because I've always, I'm generally not supposed to be where I am. I'm a bartender who failed up. Thanks to a lot of really crazy happenstances. So that made me feel really like, you know what, we are imposters, and you know what, screw it, we're supposed to be here, I don't care, I'm gonna make the space, sort of thing. So that helped me quite a bit.
I think to jump off that too, as a younger attorney, something that I found helpful when I feel like I don't know what I'm doing, and that's 90% of the time, is I found that I extend grace, I extend kind of forgiveness easily to others, but I don't do that well to myself. And so that's been a valuable lesson to me when I think about where I am in my career, and I'm still learning, right? And that's a big part of imposter syndrome, is feeling like you don't belong or feeling like you're making mistakes. Well, the more I can learn to kind of extend grace to myself and extend, kind of understand that mistakes happen, and have those conversations with mentors about how they've made mistakes in their careers too, I think it's been very enlightening to me in how I view my practice and how confident and self-assured I am here.
I think that as a first generation college student, law student, and practicing lawyer, I feel like I'm always in a situation where I am charting a path that nobody that is close to me has charted before. And so I try to carry that with me and spread that message when I'm talking to people, that sometimes when you're first generation, for being an attorney, you're first generation everything. So navigating the law firm environment, figuring out court, taking adjunct positions and everything that you navigate, you're seeing that through a new lens. And I try not to internalize that as being an imposter. I try to flip it a little bit and say that, I'm kind of a unicorn. Less than 2% of Black women are attorneys. So we are literally sprinkled throughout the profession like confetti or sprinkles. So I try to make it a more magical, positive thing, because the imposter syndrome label can be something that will stick with you. I think you have to be careful how you describe yourself and how you describe what you're feeling, and try to put that in perspective as you're navigating these new spaces.
Along the same lines of what Ms. Mallory just stated, in the same similarly situated situation as her, being first generation, I was always the person that was not expected to excel. And so in that perspective, it was kind of, nobody expects you to be here, but I'm here and they're gonna know I'm here. And I'm gonna make a point to excel at what I do and learn everything that I can, so that they understand I have a right to be here. And so switching it from the perspective of using it as a something you internalize as a negative and turning it into a positive, to say, you know what, every time I walk into somewhere, every time I walk into an AP class, and I was the only African American walking into that class, I'm supposed to be here. And so I don't go in and cower, but I go in and I have a presence and I'm there. And the same thing throughout my legal career. Wasn't expected to graduate from high school, let alone go to college and then go to law school and, go be a team leader in the prosecutor's office, and then a judge, like just not expected to be it. And so making sure you continue to just follow through and making sure you believe no matter what, you do belong where you want to be.
Absolutely. Judge Martinez, did you?
Yeah. Well, similarly, in Sarpy County, it's a smaller jurisdiction, even though we're very close to Omaha. But my appointment to the county court bench, I was the first female that was ever appointed to that position. The only female prior to that was Betty Peterson Sharp back in, I think it was 1972, to the district court bench, and she was only there for a few years. So breaking that boundary and really feeling like I belonged and letting everybody know, like Judge Elliott had mentioned, I did belong there. I had every right to be there, as did everyone else, because I worked just as hard, and I continue to work just as hard, if not harder, than the people are there to make it known that that's my place. That's where I do my best work, and I give back the most that I can to our community.
So each of you have kind of spoken to where you are now and realizing the importance of where you're supposed to be now, and putting that sparkle almost in the room. If you had the opportunity to talk to your younger self, what would you have told your younger self starting out in law school and then starting your career as an attorney?
I think I told myself it, which just be bold and don't let what society or sometimes even your family or your closest friends dictate where you should be in life. And just, not having that. Several times I can stand up, sit here where I'm at today and have a different perspective, but it wasn't always that way. There were times that, being the only person of color in a class, or that you did feel certain things and just, scared to be there, just all the kind of emotions and feelings that you go through. But just to, on this side of things and being an adult, to just be like, be bold, go for what you want, strive, don't let anyone tell you that you can, and don't think that, oh, this is a, community that's that, because trust me, I wouldn't be anywhere if I would listen to what I was told, even past high school, but in college, wanting to go to law school. Like, that's not where you're supposed to go. That's not where, you can't do that. You can't afford that. You can't, all the things. And just, working hard and getting there and be bold.
I would have told myself to focus earlier on purpose and alignment, and let that be my guide for what type of work I did, and what I did with my life in general. I think it all comes together. I'm not a big person for regrets because I think sometimes you will work a certain job or you'll participate in a certain organization or activity, and part of that is letting you know what you don't want to do and what you shouldn't be aligned with and what is not in your purpose walk. So I'm grateful for those opportunities, but I would have learned much earlier on to focus on what I felt aligned with and what I felt was my purpose, instead of like listening to other people's thoughts about what I should be doing, or doing things out of obligation or because I was scared that I would like fall behind in some way. I know a lot of times in law school, it kind of fosters a spirit of competition. And so you feel like the people that are in your class, you have to kind of keep up with them. And so I didn't take the bar exam right away. When I graduated from law school, I was expecting my first son. And so I took a little time off to be a mom. And when I looked up and my parents were saying, "Are you ever going to take the bar?" And I was like, "Fine." You know, that was like 6 years later. And so I felt behind for the first couple of years of my career, and I felt like I needed to catch up with the people that I graduated with. Like they had like a 5 or 6 year head start, and I should have just been focused on myself and what I wanted to be aligned with and what my purpose was.
I think mine is actually pretty similar. You know that cheesy quote, like comparison is the thief of joy, like you find it on a coffee cup? I think that is especially true and easy to fall into that trap in the legal field, where so much of the law school experience and then practice itself is competition based, or you're constantly comparing yourself to what your classmates are doing, what other associates are doing in a firm setting, or what other attorneys are doing. And I think that it just becomes draining after a while, because all of a sudden you start saying, well, these people are applying to law review, these people are doing competition teams, I need to be doing that too. And you lose sight of the things that you, like you get so involved in the weeds that you lose sight of the things that you're actually passionate about, or those things that you want to pursue, because it's something that you love. And I think as a younger attorney, that's something I also am struggling with, is seeing there's about 4 or 5 other similar associates in my class, and seeing what they're doing, what they're involved with, what their work is like, even though we're in completely different practice sections, is hard, because I constantly want to compare myself to the work that they're doing. So I think that's a challenge for me, and something I keep trying to overcome.
I would have told me to get on anxiety meds way earlier. To be quite honest. It was like, I met my now husband, but I've been calling him my husband since I met him, which tells you how crazy I am, but I'm Puerto Rican, it's fine, it's normal. We had been dating for about 6 months, and at one point he kind of looked at me, I was a 2L, and he looked at me and he was like, "If you do not go to a therapist, I'm leaving." And I was like, fair, you know? So, I just didn't want to need help. Like, I'm very stubborn, I'm very much like, I can do it, like, I don't care, I don't need you, I don't need anything, I'm fine, sort of thing. And so, when I did finally kind of ask for help, my whole world just got way easier to deal with. So if you're, I don't know if any of y'all are feeling that way, but if you are, your general practitioner can prescribe anxiety meds. And they can tell you which ones are safe to drink on. In moderation. But yeah, so that's what I would tell me. Go to the freaking doctor.
And law students, your dean of students should be able to refer you to a therapist who can help you if you need that help. Judge Martinez, did you have anything you wanted to add?
I would agree with what everyone has said. Society has created these norms and expectations, especially for women, and how we are to behave and within the workforce. And I think being able to be confident in myself and my own capabilities and my own passions and break through those norms or expectations. I wish I had done that sooner, but I think later in life, and if I had known that sooner, I would have been able to take advantage of all sorts of new opportunities. Just even if I didn't have the expectation that it would go anywhere, having the ability to walk through an open door because I had created relationships or just had been presented with opportunities that could have put me on a different path or maybe even the same path. Knowing that and maybe taking those risks earlier on would have been something that I would have appreciated at an earlier age.
Thank you. So now I'm going to take the question and kind of flip it. How do those who are not a person of color or woman support attorneys in those demographics in a way that is supportive without being condescending or savior complexy?
I do a great deal of work around this topic as a DEI practitioner and trainer and coach, and I think one of the most helpful things that someone can do if they're looking to step into a role of allyship is to not speak for the person that you're trying to be an ally for, but to offer opportunities for that person to be at the table and allow their voice to be elevated so that they have the confidence that they're supported and there's space created for them to be received. I think sometimes we want to fight people's battles for them, and I think as a person with multiple marginalized identities, I'm not necessarily looking for anyone to fight a battle for me, but to recognize when there are voices missing from the table and then allow those voices to be present without fear of intimidation, allow me to be at the table and to express kind of what I need and what my lived experience has been. So I think that would be one of the most helpful things. Don't speak for me, but make sure that I'm represented so I can speak for myself.
Coming from the practice that I was in and in a government office, and part of when I was a team leader, the things that are helpful are just inviting another into the conversation, inviting, someone into what you're doing and not just kind of acting as if, and I saw it a lot, where you're speaking down to a person or you're thinking that they're just not smart enough, you're not taking advantage of, and I would tell law clerks all the time, don't sit downstairs, come upstairs, ask questions, ask to be involved. And so when there are those opportunities to invite somebody into a learning opportunity, invite them. Don't feel like, okay, this person is lesser than me, they're younger, I don't know them, or any of those kind of things. But women, people of color, and just in general, other coworkers, invite them in. Use everything that you can as a learning opportunity to embrace what that person may know and understand that you may learn from that individual. While you think that person has nothing to give you, they may teach you life lessons that you would have never gotten. So in the same regard as Ms. Mallory stated, to bring the person to the table, you have opportunity no matter where you are, even as a young lawyer, to bring others into what your wheelhouse and what you may know. And I think that goes, speaks volumes. I know I can say to the clerks and lawyers that were under me that always said, thank you, because no one ever took the time to show me this, tell me this, or do this. And I think that gives a person value, and also lets them know that they are heard and they are smart enough to be where they are.
Yeah, I would echo that. Just give people opportunities as much as you can. I mean, I've got like 10 mentees in this room, and I love you all very much. But I think just make space, just if you've got something cool, like if I've got a cool trial I'm gonna do, like I'll tell people, like come watch, you're learning evidence right now, great, like come watch me mess up hearsay and then tell me what I did wrong, please. Sort of thing. So I think just like let people be around you, lift them up as much as you can, and then they can lift other people up. I don't know if Cesar's still here, but him and I are really close, and he and Athiri are really close, and so because of that, I became close with Athiri, and we were able to help each other and teach each other things, and so it's just spread the love, you know.
I think just as people, we tend to fall into the trap of trying to issue spot or solve problems like on a blanket approach. If we just did X, Y, Z, then the woman at the firm would be happier. If we just did this, then the associates would be happier. And I think there's so much value in taking an individualized approach. And like the panelists have said, having a conversation and seeing what that person individually needs, personally or professionally. It takes time, which is why it's so hard to do. As attorneys, like, time is very limited for us, so it takes that extra step in reaching out and having those conversations and kind of just being a human being and not just a JD. But I think there's so much value to that, especially because when we don't have these conversations, when we don't take these individualized approaches, the default is kind of tradition, which oftentimes works against women and people of color.
I'm going to jump back to what Professor Mallory was talking about, because I too educate, especially new judges and probation officers, new state employees, about inclusiveness. And I think that we have to go back to education and awareness, that we all have unconscious biases, and once we are aware of them, we can start treating people and having conversations and communicating to people in a more helpful and supportive way. And that's kind of the foundation where I think we need to start. So education and awareness is probably where I think is the beginning threshold for this conversation.
Thank you. I want to go back to when each of you kind of, when you were speaking earlier, you talked about how you wish you would have focused on what your purpose was without being focused on what people think you should do. So how do you suggest young attorneys balance seeking lucrative employment where they're making money with finding a job that gives them purpose but might not be similar pay?
I've had this conversation with Miss Kaya Phelps, who's in this room, and
Hey,
others before. I'm lightly a sellout. I mean, I'm going to own it. I went to law school being like, hey, I'm going to do the nonprofit thing. I'm going to save the world. I'm going to take on the federal government, you know, which I kind of still get to do, which is awesome, but through my immigration work. But, you know, there was a day that I just kind of sat down and I realized, okay, my husband Kyle is a laborer, he's a carpenter, and he's 40 and he skateboarded for 25 years, so his body's like paper and it's falling apart, so he's not going to be able to work forever. One of us has to have a retirement account. I just kind of sat down and realized, you know, someone's got to be the one who keeps this family moving along, and I guess it's going to be me. So, you know, that gives me more comfort being in the private sector, being like, you know what, like I'm taking care of my family. My dad both my parents grew up extraordinarily poor, and the military kind of helped my dad get himself out of it, then he got his family out, and then my uncle on my mom's side became an attorney, and he was able to lift our family out. So I kind of think of it as, you know, it's a continuation of what my uncles and my dad started, right? For a very long time, my dad was like, that's what you make? You're an attorney? I was like, yes, Dad, like, we can all be doctors, you know, whatever. But yeah, so then so that's how I kind of make peace with it. I also do a crap load of pro bono, like probably like minimum 5 hours a week. I'm always working for free. Like, I will work for free, but just ask me. Don't tell my boss. So, you know, that's how I deal with it too, you know. So for me, it was just kind of like, at some point you gotta take care of you and your own, and that's how I make that work. That's how I, you know, like doing the job that isn't exactly what I set out to do, but we're still helping people at the end of the day.
I started out for many, many years in public interest law. I represented kids in juvenile court as their guardian ad litem for years and years, and it didn't pay well, but it felt so good. and you can't really put a price on that. So that piece of it, I think, will always be with me as purpose work. One of the things that I had to learn, similar to what Deanna is talking about, is you do have to make a living. So I think boundaries are important with that. A lot of times people want to monopolize your time with like weird legal questions, especially when you're the Black attorney that they know. So you have to put some parameters around that in a polite way, but this is not your hobby. Like, this is how you take care of your kids and yourself. And so you have to, I'm big on teaching my children to monetize their gifts. So what are other ways that you can maybe do things? Cesar and I just had a discussion about teaching as an adjunct, great, fulfilling way to add some variety to what you do and get some purpose as far as giving back is concerned. So I think sometimes you have to use the versatility of your JD and do other things. You might be mixing things together to create the income that you want while still maintaining the integrity of being able to do things that allow you to give back if that's something that's in your purpose. And so that's kind of how I do it. I have a couple of different roles that I juggle, and all of them are fulfilling, and then they also pay my bills.
Cesar, you know him down.
Well, I was in the public sector. I still am in the public sector, and that I was in the county attorney's office. But I went to law school to make a difference. I went to law school because of what I seen happening in my neighborhood. I went to law school for the way that I saw people of color being treated. And so I went not for the money side of it, but because it was what I believed in. And I know all of you are aware, if not, you should be aware that our profession is one of the highest alcoholism rates there is. And I think that a lot of that is because you find yourself going into it to want to make the money, and then find yourself working so hard to do that and then not enjoying what you're doing and losing sight of what your purpose is. And so I have always stayed focused on that. What was the reason that I did this? It's the same reason that I applied to be on the bench and to stay serving the community that I live in. And so I would tell you to make your lifestyle fit your purpose and what you want to do, and not the other way around. Because through my time, I started fresh out of law school when in the county attorney's office, and the statutory salary was $27,500, literally. Now, granted, I've made strides, yes, after coming out of law school. And clearly I've made strides, but there are many in the public sector who make more than judges do. It's just a fact. But that's not why I went. So I would definitely, as they, several others here have talked about, what is your purpose and why are you doing it? And if it is because you need to take care of your family, definitely make sure that you have that balance of your mental health and that, because that's why, and I'm glad that Ms. Pena brought that up, like, our profession is one that has a lot of issues with it, and you definitely have to make sure that you balance and take care of yourself. And when you love what you do, which I have done my entire legal career, you don't have those issues. You don't deal with those issues. And so to me, I say, we can always make our lifestyle be what we are, make what you want to do work within your budget and your lifestyle, and make those plans and adjustments.
But don't leave money on the table. We as women do that a lot. We don't negotiate. We take first offers and things like that. So if you don't ask, the answer is always no, right? Mm-hmm. So negotiate and don't leave money on the table either.
And I probably come at this from a different angle. I don't think the two are necessarily mutually exclusive. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's just naive of me, but I think that there's, depending on the things that you're personally looking for in your career and what you find rewarding, you can find that at a firm, you can find that at a higher salary too. So a lot of my day-to-day as a labor and employment counseling compliance end of things is just like helping employers with the questions that they have about their workers in a way that's like they just want what's best for their people. And it's coming at it from both a legal perspective and a very human perspective too. And I personally find that really rewarding, and I love having those conversations about just like doing what's right, not just under the law, but for your workforce as well. And I love those kind of teaching moments and the opportunities to educate and learn and to add layers on top of what we're doing legally. And so I don't think that those necessarily are mutually exclusive, and I think that you can find, as long as you understand your purpose or your priorities, you can find a way to make it work for you.
Judge Martinez, did you have anything?
I think everybody said it quite clearly. It depends on your purpose and your passion and your priorities, and they may change too over time. If you're starting off as a young attorney, it may be that putting in the 80 hours a week and working at a big firm for that money is what you're passionate about and you enjoy it. But once you get a family, maybe you want something different that allows you the flexibility to have more time with your family. If you know those priorities, if you have them, if you're confident in what's really the best for you, and you're passionate about it, because like we all know life is short, as cliche as that sounds, and if you're not passionate and enjoying what you do, you're not ultimately going to be personally or professionally successful. And for me, I always knew that being in a courtroom was where I needed to be. Whether it's as a judge or as a practitioner, I was not a desk person. I needed to be thinking on my feet. I loved having the quickness and the variety, and that's really where I just enjoy my job every single day. And I find a way to supplement that money or to make it work and to work in my family and the other priorities that I have. So when you enjoy the things that you do, you find a way to integrate into kind of the hybrid approach that all the other panelists were talking about.
Mr. Hogan, did you have a question?
Yeah, given all five of your various backgrounds in the legal field, have you felt that the legal community, at least in the Omaha area, has gotten more welcoming in the time that you've been practicing law? And was there ever a time where you thought about moving to a more welcoming city than Omaha, and what kept you here, right, as women of color?
Judge Martinez, the question was, is during your career, have you felt as though the legal community has gotten more welcoming, or have you ever considered moving to a more welcoming community outside of Omaha? Is that fair?
Sure. Well, in my specific experience, I'm not from the Omaha area. So in talking earlier about taking advantages of things that happen or doors that open for you, when I first arrived here, I went to Boston College undergraduate, and I knew that Creighton had that Jesuit connection, so I called Creighton, the alumni, asked if I could somehow fit in, because I was a Jesuit undergraduate from a different school. They put me in place with, or in touch with a Cuban woman who became a very close friend, who brought me to church at Sacred Heart, and I met Catherine May Hearn, who introduced me to Cheryl Kessel, who introduced me to Tom Riley, who got me my first job. And I can't explain a more welcoming community than that. And Creighton, since then, which was back in 1998, has kind of embraced me in their community, and they never had to. I'm not a graduate of the undergrad or the law school, but I'm very grateful to them and to all of those relationships that I've made since then. I've been very blessed in this community, and I can't imagine going anywhere else that's been more welcoming.
Professor Mallory, I know you have an answer to that question.
They're being recorded, right? I'm just to be completely transparent, I would say that I've experienced both sides. I've experienced the extreme welcome and embracing, and I've also been on the receiving end of some of the rejection and being looked over for things as well. I won't say that this community has always been the most welcoming, and when I say this community, I don't mean Creighton, I mean Omaha in general, or Nebraska. I feel like we have our share of challenges. If we had it all together, we would have way more numbers, right? We would have more people who were trying to fill up the pipeline and attend our law schools and practice in our profession and stay here. We wouldn't have conversations going on about brain drain and people leaving to go and practice in other jurisdictions. So we do have some issues that we're working on. But what I have noticed about this community is while we have our share of problems, we also have our share of people who are really committed to correcting those issues. We have people who are trying to be in collaborative partnership together to make an impact on our numbers, to make Nebraska a more welcoming place for us to practice. It's part of the work that I do on a daily basis, and so I'm excited that we have people who are committed to that, deeply committed. Every chance I get, I try to shout out and thank Liz Neely, who is our Bar Association Executive Director. And when I got into the work that I'm doing now, I've had a chance to talk with colleagues all over the country, and everybody knows Liz. And I'd be willing to think that maybe if I gave Liz a couple of glasses of wine, she would tell me how many people have tried to poach her from Nebraska because they love her and they love her fire for Nebraska. And she is a Bar Association Executive Director who has a heart for diversity and inclusion. And so we're very blessed to have her here and for her to be kind of that person who keeps bringing those issues to the forefront. And Liz isn't the only one. There are a ton of us working on these issues here and making the bench better for women, the practice in general better for women, our law schools better for women. And so I think that while we do have our challenges in Nebraska, and I don't think that we can sugarcoat that, I think we have so many wonderful people here who are trying to work on those issues and make a change that it tends to give me hope that this is a great place to continue to be. I've been here all my life, born and raised, educated, and now practicing, and so I don't have any regrets for doing that because I know that my community needed me and the representation that comes along with seeing my Black face and me as a woman, and so I don't have any regrets for that, but I am thankful for all of you who are here today to have these conversations and for these types of opportunities to push these issues up.
I don't really give people the choice if they're going to welcome me or not. I'm here. But I never intended to be here. I'm from Texas, which is the best country on earth. Guillermo knows, my boy. I stand by that actually still, which is shocking, whatever, it's fine. But I always intended to go back to Texas. My mom's from Puerto Rico, my parents live in Puerto Rico now. Every single time I go there, I wonder, why do I live in a cold place when I could live in a warm place? And then they get hit by another hurricane, and then I remember, we don't have those here. And I feel better about staying here. But, I mean, kind of with Chantal, I understand, or with Miss Mallory, Professor Mallory.
No, just Chantal is fine.
You know, it sucks. I mean, I have been called the interpreter before, you know? Like, there are days that it just sucks. There's days that I don't want to leave my house. Like, truly, there are days that it's really hard for me to leave my house when I see kind of how people are treated and things like that. And a lot of times it's my clients. I had a hearing a few weeks ago, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw someone with a vest walk in, and I thought, ICE is here, and they're going to deport my client. So I'm trying to prepare my cross-examination. I'm trying to, do all these other things to keep my client calm while trying to figure out, okay, is this ICE? What do I do if it's ICE? How do I get him out of here, without breaking the law, right? So trying to figure out, what do I do if he does get deported, if he gets picked up, how am I going to contact his family, things like that. So there's days like that where you're just like, this is too hard. It is too hard. And those days are, those are the days that I want to move. You know, I would way rather be in the warm place. I'd way rather be with my parents on an island enjoying a coconut beverage and a delicious empanada, which we call pastelillos. It's fine. But, you know, my father-in-law is here and he's got medical issues and I love him more than me. So I want to stay here and I want to support him. It just kind of came down to it was a logical discussion with my husband and I. It was kind of, I built my career here. I, you know, clerked at the immigration court here, so I know the judges. I know how they do things here. You know, I've built my network here, sort of thing. And my new family is here, so it kind of just turned into a, well, do we want to start over somewhere else where we don't know anyone, we don't know the climate? What if we go there and it also sucks? Like, what do we do? And now we're broke and it still sucks, you know? So we just kind of made the decision, like, I like it here for now. Like, you know, maybe we'll check in again in, you know, another 5 years and see what's going on. But for me, it was just sort of a logical discussion, and this is where we ended up.
I don't know that I can speak to change in like the 2 years that I've been at but Dean Summers and I were just had a conversation about the disparities that we see in like law school classes and how that reflects in the actual practice. Because my class when we came in, I think we were more women than men, maybe like 60-40 or something like that. And that's, I don't think, reflected in the Omaha legal community yet. And I think that there's obviously room for change and we're slowly getting there. But what I found or kind of have seen to be a positive ray of hope is the women that are stepping into partnership or the women who are stepping into leadership positions in the legal community, I think are really helping us move along that pace. So I'm hopeful for the future.
You are the future.
The only time I ever considered leaving Omaha was not necessarily with regards to the community, but just the social aspects that are offered here a lot of times. And when you're from Omaha and then you go to college here and then you go to law school here, you really don't go do a whole lot because you've been here. In the legal community, I can tell you, as everybody was talking here, that, you know, there's still a lot of work to be done, but I can tell you, when I started in the county attorney's office, I was the only person of color in that office. There were less females than men, and then the district court bench that I currently sit on at one point had, you know, 2 females. And as everybody was talking, I'm sitting here thinking like, okay, I think there might be more women in the county attorney's office. Through my time there, I don't know about present day, but through my time there, and there are presently 7 females on the district court bench. You know, the fact that I'm the first female of color or African American female on the district court bench, there's still work to be done, but from when I started to where I am now, and the positions that I've held, and being strictly in that kind of legal bubble that is the criminal realm of the courthouse and now the district court, I never thought about leaving because of how I was welcomed, because even though, you know, there were 3 people of color in my entering law school class in 1995, and I was the only one, I believe, that graduated out of that class. Seeing and coming to these and all the things, the great job that Corey Taylor has done connected with Midlands and Balsa, just to see the number of people of color that are in law school now and the ones that are at Creighton and the ones that are at UNL are strides compared to where I was. So yes, we have a long way to go, but I think that the community as a whole, with people like Professor Mallory, Liz Neely, who are now dedicated to bringing what we see here, we are moving forward. And so I never thought of leaving, because if I leave, what does that do to those numbers? And so I've stayed put and will not leave. In addition to, I will never take the bar again. Thank you, have reciprocity.
Well, I'm not in law school, but I did leave. I moved to Virginia for 5 years. But I came back because I felt like I owed it to the community that poured into me to be another face, because there's only so many of us. And I want to make sure that, because I went to Girls Inc. and Professor Mallory was one of my Girls Inc. teachers, and she's one of the first lawyers I ever met. And I want to be that person for the next young brown girl. So
Thanks for telling my age.
you're welcome. Okay, so last question, which I think would be appropriate to take away maybe an action item for the people here today. Please share one or two actionable steps that you think are important for the next generation of female attorneys or just young attorneys in general entering the legal world in order to ensure that they have a successful career.
I think surrounding yourself with a good team or a good support system. It doesn't have to be at the office. For me it is, but having people there who you can vent to, who you can talk to, who you can share frustrations with, but also who will celebrate with you, I think is so key. And that would just be my advice: surround yourself with good people.
I think my advice would be similar, find that person, so many times we select a mentor that you are surface with. Like, find somebody that has, as she said, that you literally can talk about all of the things that you experience. You can cry, you can scream, you can be your genuine self, but that is going to be give you the true, what you need to be told at that point and not what you want to hear. And to be a self-motivator. Surround yourself with good people who can help you in the direction you want to go, but also let people know that you are real, you mean business, you do the work, you appear on time, you are prepared, you know what you're doing, you're not just coming through or asking someone else all the time for the answer, but you're looking for it yourself and actually being who you know you can be, and then having that support, the community that you can celebrate the joys with and cry through the sorrows with, because it's huge.
I think some of the most important things that you could do as newer professionals would be to assemble what I call, and what I've heard other people call, like a personal board of directors, like people that you can go to for different things. You know how there's like, I got a guy for that. Well, you need to have like a person for this or that. Like, who's the person that I can email and say, read this email before I send it because I don't think that I should send this like this? Or who's the person who you can send a picture to and say, these pumps or these flats? Or, they're like those people, or the person that can look at you and say, what's going on? Or, the Joy Suitors, you need a Dr. Pepper. She can see it on my face, like, yes, I need a Dr. Pepper today. And so you need to assemble kind of that personal board of directors, those people that you can use and that are always in your corner and on your team. And that could include a mentor or a sponsor or both. But I think you need to have kind of that sounding board. The other thing I think you need to do is you need to stay connected. I have the opportunity to teach here because I stayed connected to Creighton, and I came to events and I talked to people and I stayed abreast of what was going on, and now I have an opportunity to give back at a place that gives so much of me. I have an opportunity to see Dean Summers do what she does as someone I saw growing up. I have an opportunity to see Judge Elliott become a judge. And so when you stay connected to people, I think that helps, and it makes this practice so much more welcoming, and it makes it a place where you feel like you have a team or teammates, even when you're not operating in that type of capacity.
I would say just don't be afraid of things, which sucks. That's such stupid advice. But it's also like, I guess, be afraid of things, then do it anyway, Like, yeah, you're going to be the first. You're going to be the only one. Okay, once you get used to it, right? Get over it. Do it anyway. Be afraid and then do it. There's so many issues that I've gotten to argue and things that I've dealt with. I mean, I'm one of not a lot of people do a lot of, for example, family law with people who don't have papers. I'm doing that all the time. I'm arguing to seal cases because we're talking about immigration and it's prejudicial. It's 403, I don't want it in. You know, things like that. Just don't be afraid to be yourself and just do you, you know. You're gonna mess up. You're gonna mess up a lot. You're new. Get over it. Get used to the feeling. You know, like I said, cry, drink your wine, eat your popcorn, and move on. Get up and do it again. You know, the world's not going to stop just because you mess something up. But don't mess up your client's case because that's called malpractice. There is insurance for that, but don't rely on that. But yeah, just don't be afraid of things. Just do it. Just freaking do it. It's fine. You'll be fine.
Judge Martinez.
Well, I would echo everything that the other panelists said. Mentorship and multiple mentors is extremely important. Networking and keeping yourself connected to the legal community. Taking risks, absolutely. And I think the only thing I would add would be to never forget that you always have something to learn. You can always do something to improve the way that you're practicing law or you're communicating with people or developing those relationships, because our jobs are really about communication and relationships, and those are always things that we can build on to improve our practice, to improve our outcomes. So that's, I think, something that's equally as important.
Thank you. Thank you so much, ladies, for your time and your words of wisdom. It was greatly appreciated. Before we dismiss, I would be remiss if I didn't also recognize Judge Daniels, who was teaching a little bit ago, but I recognize all the other judges, so I have to recognize him. So don't be mad at me. And then also, Dean Frechette want me to share that he is so honored that you all decided to join us. He is in Arizona doing alumni relations thing, so he sends his apologies that he missed it. But thank you all so much for being here. We won't keep you any longer, so have a good night.